In our last episode, we had another look at IELTS Listening, specifically Section 4 of this component. In this episode, let's jump into some grammar with relative clauses. Hey guys, welcome to episode 35 of Hacking IELTS. If you're joining us for the first time, this is a podcast and a YouTube channel dedicated to helping new and intermediate IELTS test takers understand the exam and attain higher results. For this episode, we'll focus on grammar with relative clauses. Let's review what we looked at from our last episode. Here are the highlights. For Section 4 of the listening component, it's pretty much academic in nature, and it'll always be focused on a topic related to school, university, and will most likely be a lecture by a professor or a teacher. We can be fairly certain that this audio clip will take the form of a monologue. Next, we discussed some of the task types for this section, such as note completion, multiple choice, and labeling a diagram. And a big point from our last episode: when you are listening to the audio clip, underline or circle the keywords that are related to the question. Then, try to recall synonyms or paraphrases that might be heard in the audio clip. For labeling diagrams in Section 4 of the listening section, we explain that you're going to have two different types of tasks. The first one is matching, and we're going to simply match aspects that we see on the provided diagram to words that appear on a provided list. On the other hand, we have label completion questions in which we need to fill a gap with a particular label, and this could be up to 3 words, but probably no more than this. We also mentioned that before the audio even begins, that we need to be at work. We should be carefully reading the instructions in order to clearly understand how many words we can use for each of these gaps. We learned that we need to identify the keywords on the appropriate label and come up with synonyms that we might hear when the audio clip begins, and then we need to predict the answer. We also covered a hot tip: point to each part of the diagram as you hear it being discussed in the incredibly fascinating dialogue. When you hear a keyword or one of the synonyms, wait for the answer, then write down the answer in the gap. Okay, let's move on to some grammar work, specifically relative pronouns and relative clauses. If you head to learnenglish.britishcouncil.org, you'll find amazing information on grammar, such as the area we're covering in this episode. If you've never heard of them, relative clauses give us information about a person or a thing that we're discussing. These clauses all start with relative pronouns such as who, that, which, whose, where, and when. They usually define or identify the noun that precedes them. Let's look at some examples of relative pronouns and clauses together. Do you know the boy who started grade 12 last week? Can I have the pen that I gave you an hour ago? A smartphone is a device which can be used for many tasks. She wants to live in a place where the weather is warm. 2020 was a year when everything went wrong. We have another relative pronoun, whom, but it's rarely used in modern spoken English, as it's fairly outdated, so we won't focus on this pronoun. When using the relative pronoun whose, it's important to note that this pronoun is used in place of a progressive pronoun. For example, first, there is a student in grade 11. Second, his father owns a private jet. In other words, we would never write, there's a student in grade 11, his father owns a private jet. Okay, now let's take a look at the relative pronouns where and when. The pronouns can be used with place and time nouns. For example, Canada is a country where over 37 million people live and work. 2001 was the year when I returned from Korea to Canada. For these examples, the relative clauses define or identify the preceding noun, but some relative clauses aren't used in this manner. Rather, they're used to provide extra information. Let's look at some of these examples together. My English teacher, who came to the UAE in 2009, likes to train in the gym. The sandstorms, which are usual for winters in the Middle East, cover cars with a fine layer of sand. Ronaldo, who was born in Portugal, is one of the best soccer players of all time. Apple, which makes computers and smartphones, is moving a factory from China to the United States. In the summer, I'm going to visit Brazil, where my in-laws live. One thing we need to observe is that these relative clauses, which provide extra information, absolutely require separation using commas. We also need to be careful using the relative pronoun that, as it can't be used to provide a non-defining clause about a person. For example, Cristiano Ronaldo, that was born in 1985, is one of the greatest soccer players of all time. Obviously, this is incorrect. Now, for the correct version. Cristiano Ronaldo, who was born in 1985, is one of the greatest soccer players of all time. Does this make sense, guys? All right, let's keep going. In written English, we always keep the relative pronoun, but there are a couple of situations in spoken English where we can omit a relative pronoun. Let's take a look at a few examples now. Did you find the phone you lost? For the written form, this would be, did you find the phone which you lost? Here's another example. I haven't received any of the video games I ordered on Amazon. For the written form, this would be, I haven't received any of the video games that I ordered on Amazon. Let's do another one now. Do you know the teacher she's talking to? For the written form, this would be, do you know the teacher who she's talking to? Okay, we're nearly done, but I want to go over one more area with you guys. If the relative clause has a present or past participle and the auxiliary verb to be, both the relative pronoun and the auxiliary verb can be omitted or left out. Let's take a look at some examples. Anyone that is caught smoking in the school will be suspended immediately. We don't actually need to write that is. It will look and sound like this. Anyone caught smoking in the school will be suspended immediately. Let's see another example. Most of the parents who were invited to the parent-teacher meeting failed to attend. In this case, we can omit who were. It will look and sound like this. Most of the parents invited to the parent-teacher meeting failed to attend. You want one more? Okay, why not? The couple that is living next door to us are from England. In this case, we can omit that is. It will look and sound like this. The couple living next door to us are from England. One final example just to make sure this is crystal clear. He was wearing a black cap which was covered with pins from countries he visited. In this case, we can omit which was. It will look and sound like this. He was wearing a black cap covered with pins from countries he visited. Okay, this wraps up things for this week. Did this episode help you out? Let me know in the comments section on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe for new videos like this every week. Or be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can also sign up for free courses over at hackingielts.com. Take care, guys, and catch you in the next one.